Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel, Forever in Memory. In this video, we'll be honoring American celebrities who have passed away today and in recent days, along with other notable figures from around the world. Before we begin, please show your support by giving this video a like. It really helps the channel. Thank you. And let's get started.
The 2nd of October, 2025. Joshua Allen passed away. A man whose name might not have been written in flashing lights, but whose influence reached far beyond the boundaries of his field. Known for his deep intelligence, relentless curiosity, and ability to connect with people on a profoundly human level, Allen built a legacy defined not by fame, but by the quiet power of dedication, resilience, and purpose. Born in the United States in the early 1980s, Joshua grew up in a world of rapid change and limitless possibility. Even as a child, he was driven by a hunger to understand how things worked. Not just machines or technology, but people, societies, and the ideas that shaped them. That curiosity guided him through his early years, leading him to pursue an education rooted in critical thinking and innovation. Those who knew him then remember a young man who was never satisfied with simple answers, always pushing deeper, always questioning, always searching for something more. His early career reflected that same restless energy. Joshua refused to be confined by a single path. He explored different fields, from technology and education to community development and leadership, always seeking ways to create tangible, lasting change. Colleagues admired his ability to see the bigger picture, to anticipate challenges before they appeared, and to inspire those around him with a calm, steady confidence. But his journey was not without setbacks. At several points, projects he poured his heart into failed to meet expectations. Doors that once seemed open suddenly closed. Criticism and doubt followed him, and there were moments when the weight of disappointment threatened to crush his spirit. Yet time and again, Joshua rose to meet those challenges with resilience. He adapted, he learned, and he turned every setback into an opportunity for growth. It was this ability to persevere, to keep moving forward even when the path was unclear, that defined his character more than any professional achievement. Today, as the world says goodbye to Joshua Allen, we do so not just in mourning, but in gratitude. Gratitude for a life that, though too short, was rich with meaning and purpose. Gratitude for the example he set, that true success is not measured by titles or accolades, but by the impact we leave on others. The 1st of October, 2025. Nigel Latta, the renowned New Zealand clinical psychologist, author, and television presenter, passed away, leaving behind a profound legacy in the field of mental health and public education. Known for his ability to translate complex psychological ideas into language everyone could understand, he changed how an entire nation talked about parenting, relationships, and the human mind. Born in Oamaru, New Zealand, Latta grew up fascinated by people, their fears, their dreams, and the hidden forces that shape their behavior. This curiosity led him to study psychology at the University of Otago, where he developed a deep commitment to helping others through understanding rather than judgment. Over the years, he built a respected career as a clinical psychologist, specializing in family therapy and child behavior, and he became a trusted voice for parents and educators alike. But Lotta's influence extended far beyond the therapy room. Through his best-selling books, lectures, and acclaimed television series such as Beyond the Darklands and The Politically Incorrect Parenting Show, he brought psychological insight into living rooms across New Zealand and beyond. His rare gift was blending scientific knowledge with warmth and humor, making even the most difficult conversations about trauma, discipline, or resilience feel accessible and deeply human. He was not afraid to confront society's darker sides, from crime and violence to mental illness and grief. Yet he always returned to one message, that people, no matter how broken, can change and heal. His work reshaped public conversations about mental health and gave countless families tools to understand and support one another. Today, as his voice falls silent, his influence continues to echo in classrooms, living rooms, and counseling rooms across the world. Nigel Lotta's legacy is not just in the pages he wrote or the programs he presented, but in the countless lives he touched and the understanding he brought to a complex world. May his memory continue to guide us toward compassion, curiosity, and the belief that healing is always possible. 2nd October 2025. Lawrence Moten, the celebrated American basketball player and one of the most accomplished shooting guards in collegiate history, passed away, leaving behind a legacy defined by talent, resilience, and an unshakable love for the game. Known to fans as Poetry in Moten, his name became synonymous with grace on the court and determination off it. Born in Washington, D.C., Moten grew up on the city's playground courts, where basketball wasn't just a game, it was a language, a dream, a way forward. From a young age, he stood out not only for his scoring ability, but for his composure and intelligence. That focus carried him to Syracuse University, where he would etch his name into history. During his time with the Orange, Moten became the all-time leading scorer in both Syracuse and Big East history, a record that still stands as a testament to his consistency and brilliance. Yet his journey was never just about personal accolades. Despite going undrafted in the National Basketball Association, Moten refused to let that setback define him. He carved out a professional career that spanned the Continental Basketball Association, the NBA, and international leagues, showing that passion and perseverance matter more than the spotlight. His time with the Vancouver Grizzlies proved that his skills belonged at the highest level, and his leadership, both on and off the court, inspired countless young athletes to chase their own dreams relentlessly. Off the court, Moten remained deeply committed to his community. He devoted himself to mentoring youth, using basketball as a tool to teach discipline, teamwork, and hope. For him, success was never just about points or trophies. It was about lifting others and giving back to the game that had given him so much.
1st October 2025. Renato Casaro, the legendary Italian illustrator whose breathtaking film posters defined an era of cinema, passed away, leaving behind a legacy of art, imagination, and timeless storytelling. His work was more than promotion. It was pure visual poetry, capturing the soul of the movies he loved and translating it into images that still ignite wonder decades later. Born in Treviso, Italy, in 1935, Casaro's journey into art began with a sketchbook and an obsession: the magic of cinema. As a boy, he would stand outside theaters, mesmerized not just by the films themselves, but by the posters that advertised them. Bold, dramatic windows into worlds he longed to enter. By his 20s, that fascination had turned into a career, and soon his name became synonymous with some of the most iconic artwork in film history. From Hollywood blockbusters to European masterpieces, Casaro's brush brought stories to life long before the opening credits rolled. His posters for classics like Conan the Barbarian, The Last Emperor, Dances with Wolves, and countless spaghetti westerns were more than advertisements. They were part of the cinematic experience itself. Directors sought him out, producers trusted his vision, and audiences around the world recognized his unmistakable style: epic, emotional, and deeply human. But behind every masterpiece was a man devoted to his craft. He painted with an almost cinematic eye, often watching films multiple times before putting brush to canvas. He believed a poster should not simply show a scene, it should capture the spirit, the heartbeat of a story. Even in an era of digital design, his hand-painted art stood apart, timeless in its beauty and power. October 1, 2025. Pablo Guerrero, one of Spain's most poetic and influential singer-songwriters, passed away, leaving behind a legacy woven from words, melodies, and the quiet power of a voice that spoke directly to the human soul. For more than 5 decades, his music was not just heard, it was felt, like a whisper of wind through the olive trees or a heartbeat beneath the vast Iberian sky. Born in Esparragosa de Lares, Extremadura, in 1946, Guerrero grew up in a landscape of silence and song, a Spain still marked by its past, but yearning for change. From an early age, he understood that music could be more than entertainment. It could be resistance, memory, and hope. When he first picked up a guitar, he was not dreaming of fame. He wanted to tell stories, of villages forgotten by time, of love that survived hardship, of freedom that had not yet arrived. His breakthrough came in the 1970s, when songs like A Cántaros became anthems for a generation longing for democracy and a voice.
Guerrero's lyrics were subtle yet profound. They spoke of rain and rivers, but everyone knew they meant change and rebirth. He sang of ordinary people, farmers, workers, lovers, with the tenderness of a poet and the courage of a truth-teller. And though his music was deeply Spanish, its soul was universal. It spoke to anyone who had ever hoped, suffered, or dreamed. But Guerrero's journey was not easy. He faced censorship, political pressure, and the challenge of staying true to his art in a world that often preferred silence. There were moments of doubt, years when his songs were pushed to the margins, yet he never abandoned his path. "I sing because silence is too heavy," he once said. And so he sang, through changing times and shifting tastes, always faithful to the essence of his craft. As the decades passed, his work evolved, more introspective, more experimental, but it never lost its heart. Whether exploring jazz influences, setting poetry to music, or returning to his folk roots, Guerrero remained a storyteller first and foremost. His concerts felt less like performances and more like conversations, intimate, honest, deeply human. October 1, 2025. Gabriel Loubiet, a respected Canadian politician and businessman who left an indelible mark on Quebec's political and economic landscape, passed away, remembered as a figure of integrity, determination, and unwavering commitment to public service. His name may not have been shouted from every podium, but those who followed Quebec's political evolution in the 20th century know how deeply his work shaped the province's path. Born in Quebec City in 1938, Loubiet grew up during a time of profound social and political transformation in Canada. From an early age, he was drawn to the complexities of governance and the power of public policy to shape society. After studying economics and immersing himself in the issues that defined his era, he entered politics not as a careerist, but as a believer, someone who truly felt that government could be a force for progress and unity. His political rise came through the Union Nationale, a party that played a pivotal role in Quebec's mid-century history. Elected as a member of the National Assembly in the 1960s, Loubiet quickly distinguished himself with sharp intellect, pragmatic leadership, and a deep understanding of Quebec's evolving identity. He served as Minister of Tourism, Hunting and Fishing, and later as Minister of Industry, where he championed initiatives that strengthened the province's economy and promoted its rich cultural and natural heritage. But Loubiet's career was not without challenges. As Quebec entered the turbulent years of the Quiet Revolution, shifting ideologies and new political movements transformed the landscape. He navigated those changes with dignity and purpose, often serving as a bridge between tradition and progress, someone who understood the importance of preserving cultural identity while embracing modernization. His voice was one of balance and reason during an era when political discourse was anything but. After stepping away from public office, Loubiet transitioned into the business world, where he continued to contribute to Quebec's development. He became a respected entrepreneur and advocate for economic growth, always emphasizing innovation, sustainability, and responsibility. Even outside the spotlight, his influence was felt in boardrooms, policy discussions, and community initiatives that bore the imprint of his thoughtful approach to leadership. Throughout his life, Gabriel Lubier remained deeply connected to the people he served. Colleagues and citizens alike remembered him as a man who listened more than he spoke, who valued consensus over conflict, and who believed that politics, at its best, was about improving lives. His work reflected a rare blend of pragmatism and idealism, a belief that progress could be both principled and practical.
He was never supposed to be a star, at least not in the way the world came to know him. Larger than life, carved from steel, the embodiment of cinematic strength and discipline. In another universe, Dolph Lundgren might have lived his days quietly in a laboratory, solving complex equations and advancing the world of chemical engineering. But fate had a different plan. What began as an unlikely detour would lead him to become one of the most recognizable action heroes of his generation. A man whose presence on screen symbolized power, perseverance, and the relentless pursuit of self-reinvention. Born Hans Lundgren on November 3, 1957 in Stockholm, Sweden, Dolph grew up in a disciplined household where expectations were high and excuses were few. His father, an engineer, demanded excellence, and his mother, a language teacher, nurtured an intellectual curiosity that stayed with him for life. Yet beneath that structure, young Dolph carried something deeper, a quiet determination to prove himself, not just to his family, but to the world. As a boy, he was shy and introverted, often feeling overshadowed by others. But everything changed when he discovered martial arts. The discipline, the focus, the demand for both physical and mental strength, it became more than a hobby. It was a way of life. He poured himself into training, rising through the ranks of karate and eventually representing Sweden internationally. The sport gave him more than medals. It gave him confidence, purpose, and a sense of identity. Academically, he was just as formidable. Dolph excelled in the sciences and earned a degree in chemical engineering from the Royal Institute of Technology, before receiving a master's degree from the University of Sydney. His intellect was matched only by his ambition, and when he won a prestigious Fulbright scholarship to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, his future seemed clear. A brilliant career in science awaited. But destiny often works in unpredictable ways. While working as a bodyguard in New York to support himself, Dolph crossed paths with the world of entertainment, and it changed everything. A chance encounter led to a small part in the James Bond film A View to a Kill in 1985. It was meant to be nothing more than a footnote in his life, but that brief appearance caught the attention of casting directors. Within months, he was offered a role that would define his career and catapult him to global fame: the Soviet boxing machine Ivan Drago in Rocky IV. No one expected a chemical engineer from Sweden to become the face of Cold War cinema. But when Dolph stepped into the ring opposite Sylvester Stallone, audiences around the world were mesmerized. With only a handful of lines, he became an unforgettable presence, stoic, ruthless, and magnetic. "I must break you," his character growled,
And with those 4 words, Lundgren was no longer just a scholar or a fighter. He was a star. That breakthrough would set the stage for one of the most remarkable careers in action cinema, a journey defined not just by muscle and might, but by intelligence, discipline, and a relentless drive to push beyond expectations. And yet, as iconic as Ivan Drago was, Dolph Lundgren's story was only beginning. The years that followed turned Dolph Lundgren from a breakout villain into a cornerstone of action cinema. Yet behind the imposing physique and steel-like stare was a man who constantly sought more meaning, more growth, more substance than the industry often allowed. He could have remained forever the silent brute, typecast as the muscle-bound antagonist, but Dolph was determined to prove that his story, like his mind, had far greater depth. Hollywood in the late 1980s and early 1990s was an arena built for men like him, towering figures who could carry a film with their physical presence alone. He embraced that world wholeheartedly, taking on leading roles in movies like Masters of the Universe, 1987, where he stepped into the role of He-Man, and The Punisher, 1989, portraying Marvel's iconic anti-hero long before superhero films dominated the box office. Films like Universal Soldier, 1992, and Showdown in Little Tokyo, 1991, cemented his status as a dependable action lead, and audiences around the globe came to associate his name with explosive fight sequences, stoic determination, and raw physical charisma. But even as the cameras rolled and his image graced posters in every corner of the world, Dolph wrestled with an internal conflict. The man who had once dreamed of a career in science now found himself fighting a different kind of battle, one against typecasting, creative stagnation, and the expectations that Hollywood placed upon him. "People see the muscles first," he once said in an interview, "but there's more to me than that." That desire to evolve pushed him beyond acting. Dolph turned to directing, writing, and producing, seeking projects that allowed him to shape narratives rather than simply star in them. His directorial debut, The Defender, 2004, revealed a thoughtful storyteller beneath the facade of genre filmmaking. It wasn't about proving something to critics, it was about proving something to himself. Life off-screen was no less dramatic. Fame brought opportunities, but also pressures, and at times, personal demons. The relentless pace of the industry took its toll on his relationships, and the persona he projected to millions often clashed with the quieter, more introspective man he was in private. Still, he never stopped reinventing himself. He earned a black belt in karate, competed internationally, and continued his academic pursuits, proving that strength comes in many forms: physical, intellectual, and emotional. As the years passed, a new generation discovered Dolph not just as a nostalgic icon, but as a resilient artist. His return to the mainstream with the Expendables franchise reminded audiences of why they had loved him in the first place, while also showcasing the maturity and nuance he had gained with time. He was no longer just Ivan Drago or He-Man. He was Dolph Lundgren, a man who had fought battles far beyond the silver screen and emerged stronger each time. Through triumphs and setbacks, he remained true to the same principles that had guided him since his days as a shy boy in Stockholm: discipline, perseverance, and an unshakable belief in transformation. And with every role, every film, every reinvention, he continued to challenge the world's idea of who he was, and perhaps, more importantly, who he could still become. Time, as it always does, softened the edges of Dolph Lundgren's story, revealing something far greater than the image that first made him famous. The world had known him as the embodiment of physical strength, the towering presence who could silence a room with a single glance. But those who looked deeper saw a man who had spent a lifetime building something far more enduring than muscle. He had built resilience, wisdom, and a quiet understanding of what it means to grow, to fall, and to rise again. In the later chapters of his life, Dolph embraced the kind of roles that mirrored his own evolution: mentors, leaders, fathers, men haunted by the choices of their past, yet still determined to do good. It was no longer about proving himself in the arena of box office numbers or critical acclaim. It was about telling stories that mattered, about leaving behind fragments of truth hidden within the spectacle of cinema.